Hey guys, King of Charmander here, today your judge, your jury, and your analyst, and today I bring you my top 5 teams with Walrein. So, Walrein is really weird. No, really, it is. So, there's no Metamon that resists both typings of attacks and has great coverage. Here's the problem. Counter is overpowered in Go Battle League, and there's a lot of counter users in Go Battle League. So, through testing and whatnot, Walrein does well, but if you see a fighter, or heaven forbid, something like Galvantula, it's not that great. Like, I've been doing practice, etc. with it, and there's a lot, like, it kind of flips everything on its head. Like, Ice type, yeah, it's a great Ice type, but that means other Ice types come into play, especially those with Charm. So, I've noticed that Charmers are a lot more prevalent along with that thing, like things like Galarian Stunfisk, which is already annoying, can take down Walrein and a lot of different combinations. So even though Walrein statistically is very powerful, there's a lot of things that scare it. And because it isn't super bulky, there's a lot, well, let's just Go Battle League. You know, Go Battle League is blind. You know, you take what you got and go with it. It's not like when Trevenant came out where it's such a core breaker that, or it broke so many things that it was basically like easy legend if you used Trevenant early on when it came out. Just because if you didn't have it and you were using it, Trevenant blasted everything. But Walrein also beats Trevenant, so there's no balance in this meta. So just the teams I'm about to show you, Walrein is good, etc. But like I mentioned, counter is overpowered. Guess what? Counter users are plentiful in Open Great League. So that's what makes it really, really hard. Well, even in all leagues that Walrein is in. Maybe in Master League, it's like, okay, but at the same time, it's also very, very weird because Walrein isn't super bulky. But yeah, so I think this thing's kind of like as good as it is statistically. I kind of think it's personally, like, by running it, I think it's kind of overrated. Like, it's really overrated. just because I cement, like, again with fighting, etc. Like, yeah, or there's a lot of people with Pokemon with fighting type moves or electric type secondary moves or grass secondary moves, which still do super effective damage against Walrein. So yeah. Anyways, my mental health tip for the day. Good luck on your community day. Going outside is wonderful for your mental health, and so is typically playing Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go allows you to kind of de-stress and get you away from the world because you're going out. Most people don't normally walk outside nowadays, or just in general, even before the pandemic came out, you normally won't go outside and walk or go out with your friends. Pokemon Go really fosters that person-on-person, in-person relationship. Very much like therapy. Therapy works really well when it's in face-to-face. You can kind of do that in teletherapy, but generally what clients prefer and a lot of effectiveness for psychotherapy is a face-to-face interaction, which is why Pokemon Go exploded and was such a great game, because it was the only game that really got you face-to-face with each other. You're not doing online and queuing where you're over Discord and you're like doing trios. So that's what made Pokemon Go so great. Unfortunately, that also caused the death of Pokemon Go PvP esports or just its potential. Because of the fact that it's such a high barrier to entry game like this, where random things keep coming up and being really good. You can't, there's no healthy meta in Go Battle League. Really, there truly isn't. Because a meta doesn't have 30 things in it that's good. A good example, like I would have mentioned, is Yu-Gi-Oh! In Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a masterful at keeping balance within the competitive scene because they literally insta-ban anything that comes out. When the Yada Lock strategy came out, they were like, okay, we're banning Yada after one. When Dark Arm Dragon, or what's another one? Chaos Dragon of the End, when those powerful freaking cards came out, they banned them instantly for the longest time and then returned them. So a healthy meta isn't when everything is allowed. That's why I'm like, when people have you stress about IVs or do those IV spreads, I'm like, it's not really that prevalent because well, I'll do another video on that, but IVs are overrated. If IVs mattered so much, then people with rank 1s would be beating everyone. But yeah, go out, have fun, don't stress about IVs, get your high rank, get your high attack like I mentioned, and just save everything. Hoard everything you think might be good for like spreads. Because here's the fact. You don't know what the IVs of your opponent's Pokemon are, so why stress about it? If your opponent has a spread that meets certain points and you don't know about it, or if it just happens to be that conundrum, or you know when it's the 1 HP in a dream scenario and you need to survive, and for some reason you just have the wrong spread at the wrong time, and they have the right spread, right? You never know, so there's no reason to stress about it. It's, yeah. Keep your stress low, go out, hang out with friends, and have a wonderful Spheal community. Anyways, let's get started. This is my top 5 teams with Walrein. Alright, so for this first team, I have Walrein, Sableye, Safe Switch, and Deoxy's defense. This is kind of double Safe Switch because you could use either one. As you see, pretty good stats, very safe team with not a lot of coverage. Well, yeah, I wouldn't worry about the coverage. The damage that this, as you see, A, for consistency, this team will pump out a lot of damage, so you don't really have to worry about that. As you see here, there are win cons against things like Umbreon. What you're going to do against Umbreon is if you see it in the lead, you want to wipe it out because your back row is really weak against Umbreon. So again, if you face Walrein in the lead against Umbreon, generally Umbreon will beat you. However, if you see here, you can leave it with zeros. You can take it to the zeros because you're going to have to pop both shields. Go straight in Icicle Sphere. As you see, you can take it to the zeros, and then after that, you can farm down. It won't have any energy left, so then you could sack both shields, farm down the Umbreon, and throw that energy for the back row, which is generally the way you should play it. You want to get rid of that Umbreon because, like I mentioned, your back row is weak to it. If you lose the lead, you could choose to Safe Switch and Sableye or Deoxy's defense. Again, if they don't have a Scrafty or Umbreon in the back, then you're pretty good. But if they do, it's going to be really rough anyways, so don't bank on it. Still a very powerful team, and one of my friends likes this team. He's used it. I've used it in practice. It does really well. It is also very, very good. However, that dark back row, like I mentioned, can be very dangerous, so be very careful. Especially if it's something like a shift. If it's a shifter in the back, you're in trouble. Well, not in a huge amount of trouble because you have coverage with Deoxy's defense. You can counter it to death. But yes, just be very careful. You lose the lead, say switch into Sableye, or you could sack Walrein in the lead. If it's something like Galvantula and Medicham though, you don't have to worry about it too much. For example, if you do the matchup, as you see, yes, Galvantula wins, but it's not a super convincing win, as you see here. So, yes, you will go down, you will take both shields, but you could take it to the zeros. For a good example of this is that you could take it to the zeros and then you can send in G-Fist. G-Fist can farm this Galvantula down and then you could play out something of that sort. But as you see, Walrein is able to put that pressure, which is why it's so good. Again, something like Azu and the 2 shield. Okay, so this is real quick. When you look at potential threats, results are taken from the zeros and 1 shields. I don't know why so many people don't highlight this. Like, I've seen some videos, like, they're like, oh, check out this guy's video. And I'm like, you're not mentioning this. So keep in mind that you can beat Medicham in the 2 shield. Yeah, you beat Medicham in the 2 shield. You can beat Azu in the 2 shield pretty convincingly too. As you see here in the 2 shield, Medicham does lose against your freaking thick seal very, very hard. So just keep that in mind. So again, your results are taken from zeros and 1s, so make sure you run it against a 2 shield, or more content on that later. But very good team, does a lot of damage over time, and can do well for you in Open Great League. Especially if you like Sableye Safe Switch. Like, I like running, like, Sableye, like, now that I have an XL Sableye, like, I love it. It's amazing, and does pair well with Walrein. Alright, so for the next one, we have Galvantula, Walrein, and Medicham. So you can use Walrein along with like the Shield Breaker strat, have 2 chargers in the front, or you can use Walrein as a safe switch. It's really up to you. And then you can do big damage. As you see, not a lot of bulk. This team isn't super bulky because Galvantula will take your bulk rating, but pretty safe, good coverage, a lot of damage overall. Galvantula is a really sweet mon. Breaks a lot of shields, threatens your opponent pretty hard, and at the same time, it's also really good against multiple combinations because you can discharge or you could debuff with lunge. You lose the lead here, you could safe switch. Walrein is your safe switch here. So you send out Walrein, you safe switch. Usually you'll get the fighter in the back or whatever beats the Walrein. And then Medicham and Galvantula can go to town. Galvantula in the 0 shields is powerful against many different combinations. And it also wins CMP against a lot of things. Or if you win the lead, you can trap your opponent to death. I know a lot of you like using the electric Spooter/Spider. And it's really good for Open Great League. And paired with Walrein, you can break shields, you could set up a lot of debuff plays, and then Walrein can go to town. I pair this with Medicham in the back because as you see, for your potential threats, Cofagrigus, Hypno, you take out Hypno in the 2-shield unless it's using Fire Punch. But even then, you can sack Galvantula in the lead and come in with Walrein to charge energy and close out with Medicham. Or against Cofagrigus, as you see here. If you watch a sim with Cofagrigus in the 2-shield, Cofagrigus actually can lose in the 2-shield. As you see here. Because Cofagrigus can't get to a move. Because of the fact it takes too long. As you see, it takes too long to get to it, and then Galvantula actually beats Cofagrigus in the 2-shield. So, this is why I love this team. Cofagrigus, Hypno, you don't have to worry about so much about Typhlosion, Darmanitan, Chandelure, and the 2-shield against Medicham, you can do it, you can beat it very convincingly as well. As you see, Medicham, you can straight lunge it to death. One turn of difference can flip this matchup. However, you can discharge it to Oblivion, as you see here. Discharge, 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 and poof. So, there's a lot. You can do this scenario if you get a Volt Switch too, as you see, there's a lot of play in the 2-shield against Medicham. So, very good Mon, very good team. If you lose the lead, say switch into Walrein, and then close out with Galvantula and Medicham. Alright, next up we have Walrein, Azu, and Trevenant. I kind of don't... It's a good team on paper, but it's a little rough just because of Scrafty. Scrafty leads are going to give you an incredibly hard time. So just keep that in mind. Scrafty is... Even though you have Azu, unless you match up Scrafty against Azu, this is going to be really rough. Despite that, this is probably the team with the best grades. A for coverage, B for bulk, B for safety, and consistency. So overall, very good grades across the board. Covers a lot of combinations. As you see here, you lose the lead. You could switch to Trev or Azu. It's really up to you. Generally, like, you want to use Azu as a safe switch, but for this, I would just use Trevenant. Send in Trevenant. Hopefully, you can get out that Scrafty, and you could Scrafty against Azumarill, and then hopefully Walrein with shields, or Walrein is really good against your opponent's closer as well. Really solid team across the board. As you see here, Liloon, Walrein, Scrafty. Again, like I mentioned, that Scrafty matchup is terrible. So, again, this is the highlight. Also, Umbreon can give you an issue. Umbreon beats Walrein in the 2-shield, and of course, Trevenant. You're going to have to sack Walrein in the lead, send in Azu to take out Umbreon, but then your opponent has alignment and shield, so hopefully you can come out with the W. Another hard term is definitely going to be if you see Jellicent. Jellicent is really good against Walrein because you have to Earthquake to threaten, and Jellicent is super bulky. Along with that, Jellicent is also really good against Azumarill, so the Jelly, Mr. or Mrs. Pringles, whichever one you have, is going to be a little rough. You lose the lead here, safe switch into Azu or Trev. You can use Trev as a safe switch, but yeah, I would throw in Trev. If you had to pick one to safe switch into, pick Trev so that you can go up against Scrafty if they have it. So you want that Scrafty to come out so you can take it out. Otherwise, this is if they don't have... Against a lot of neutral matchups or against a lot of big meta, as you see here, this team does really, really well. So, team will work very well for you, especially Azu. Trevenant came out recently. Azu's been out forever, so this is probably one of the more accessible teams for those of you out there. Alright, next up we got Walrein, Talonflame, and Trevenant. This is basically like the Azu team, but you just put Talonflame. And it's a great combination. Walrein and Talonflame both have moves in the meta where two mons don't resist both combinations, so it's very, very interesting and also very powerful. A for coverage, not a lot of bulk. This team is just heavy damage. Well, not heavy damage. As you see, it has good safety and consistency, so it's a very good team. You can sack Walrein in the lead against its matchup, send in Talonflame to murk your opponent, and then burp to victory, and then Trevenant is gonna Trevenant. It's coming out in Pokemon Unite, by the way, so yeah. Big Ghost Tree is coming out. Still not as cool as the Ent from Lord of the Rings. If you're a Lord of the Rings nerd, Trevenant is like, you know, well, it's not really like the Ents, because, you know, the Ents are huge, and then they took over that one scene in the Twin Towers movie was absolutely amazing. I love how they were all just, like, smashing everything, and they destroyed, they destroyed that one Terra or whatever that Saruman was controlling, so, yeah, I'm a nerd. Being a nerd is good. But anyways, this team is very powerful, does really well against overall meta, and a lot of different combinations. Has a relatively low threat score. There's a lot of options you could do with this team. You can sack Trevenant, you could sack Walrein in the lead, you could safe stitch into Trevenant or Talonflame. You could break shields with Talonflame, send Walrein and Trevenant to close out, or you can also use Trev as the safe switch. Very flexible. I had a lot of fun doing this team because there's a lot of flexibility with it. And Talonflame and Trev's like Shadow Ball ability or just like nuking ability is really, really good. So very strong team. A lot of kind of ballsy just because you don't have a lot of bulk, but if you play it well, if you're really good about managing energy and shields, or you like shield breaker strat teams, this team is really, really good and a lot of fun. There was a lot of instances where I could either Shadow Ball or Brave Bird to victory, or Walrein just Earthquakes to Steel type in the back, and that's GG's. And last but not least, we have Walrein, Mew with Focus Blast, and Shadow Nidoqueen. You're like, what the hell, King of Charmanders? What's with the Mew with Focus Blast? Just because I like Focus Blasting through shields with Mew. Mew is really, really interesting. I love Mew with Wild Charge and Focus Blast because there's a lot of if you Focus Blast through an Umbreon shield, it does a lot of damage, and there's a lot of things you can set it up with. And if you Focus Blast a Scrafty, of course it's going to die. If you Focus Blast a freaking Bastiodon, it's absolutely amazing. Sometimes it won't one-shot though. So if it's like an XL Basti, it won't one-shot. But Mew Safe Switch is a lot of fun in Open Great League and does a ton of damage. So that's why I paired it with Walrein and Shadow Nidoqueen in the back. This is a variation I was using with Shiftry. Like, I was using this team a little while ago, and it just pops Walrein in the lead instead of using Shiftry. Very strong team. Good coverage. Not a lot of bulk. A lot of damage. We're here for the damage. The damage and the bombs through the shields. The nuking through the shields. The spirit bombs. Like Dragon Ball Super. You know what I mean? I mean, Goku's spirit bomb to take out, like, well, no. Goku's spirit bomb through Jiren or whatever didn't exactly work. But you know what? Freaking spirit bombs. Spirit bombs. Love the spirit bomb. As you see here, this team is very, very powerful with good coverage. The only things that really takes you out are Fortress and Berserker in the 2-shield. Or if you lose the lead, you could sack Walrein in the lead or Safe Switch in the Mew. And then Shadow Nidoqueen, the reason why you don't have that Umbreon problem is because Shadow Nidoqueen in the 2-shield or with Poison Jabs can actually take out things like Umbreon. It can also take out Medicham as long as you have shields. Shadow Nidoqueen will also win CMP a lot. So, well, a lot. Not against everything, but a lot. So, very good. Also gives you that Charmer coverage. If you see Charmers, like Walrein Double Charm can be prevalent in this cut because Walrein pairs well with Charmers, right? Because if someone has triple counter and you have two Charmers in the back, you die. It's that simple. Especially if it's a Scrafty. Scrafty gets wiped out by a Charmer and I believe like, what, 4 or 5 Charms? But this team is very powerful, as you see. Very awkward combination, but it does well against a lot of things. You lose lead, Safe Switch in the Mew, and then Shadow Nidoqueen and Walrein can hopefully close out your matchup. You got 2 ground type users here, so if your opponent has that, if your opponent has the G-Fisk or like the G-Fisk, you have the Bastiodon in the back. That's how much I hate Bastiodon. My brain forgets about the damn Bastiodon. You could just nuke it to death. So you want to see that. And again, you also have Mew with Focus Blast. So if they switch Scrafty into you and you're able to nuke through shields, take out the Scrafty with Focus Blast, your team is pretty safe because that means Walrein and Shadow Nidoqueen can go to town. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Walrein is super strong and destroys the meta. Yes, it breaks everything. So expect to see a little bit of a flip with like fighters and whatnot. But like I mentioned, this isn't even a healthy meta, you know. Well, I don't even know. Like, meta is thrown out so much, but when you, like, you can only... What I'm trying to say here is back in the day when Season 1 and Season 2 was out, that's when you can kind of make those strategies that really factually draw stuff out. For example, targeting a Azumarill, etc. Because there wasn't... Yes, you had the dominant meta, but then that was really it. There was, like, the big 3. There is no big 3 anymore. It's not like basketball, you know what I mean? You know, you have Anthony Davis, the LeBron James, and you have Russell Westbrook, and then the Lakers are absolute booty this year. That's exactly what it is. There's like a big 30. And because Go Battle League is blind and there's no way you can kind of control the sample size, why are you worried about IVs? A lot of people are really worrying about IVs and said this spread and that spread, this spread, etc. But if battle isn't going to play, for example, if you get the 1 shield and they switch out of a matchup, etc., that screws that entire sim. So unless you're in the 2 shield or the safe switch scenario, nothing's really set in stone. Or if someone blasts your way through shields. So that's why I'm like just really scratching my head at how many, like, don't worry about your IVs. Get as many as you can, get your high attack one, get your high rank one, and then get your high defense one, however you want to feel, build your ultra master one, and then just don't stress about it. Because like I mentioned, Okay, the beginning of the video, because I'm gonna make another video on this, but the solid reason why IVs don't matter, you don't know, unless you're running like Ultra League or Master League, or even like, yeah, unless it's like Master League, because Master League's the solid one. If you know their IVs for like maxed out mons for hundos, you don't know the IVs of your opponent. So if you were doing all of this math and all this crap going on right now, and they happen to have that one IV spread that ruins yours, or the strategy that you're trying to employ, you lose. So you did all this work only to get absolutely trucked because you don't know the other person's IVs. So that's like the single solid argument of why IVs they do matter, but they don't, because you don't know your opponent's IVs. So unless it's something that solidifyingly beats most combinations, then poof. But if you have a rank 1 versus a rank 1, and you're like, okay, this rank 1 does something, guess what? They have a rank 1 too. You don't know about it. And you're like, oh, whoops. So it's exactly what it is. Get the ones you have, try to have some fun, get it, use it, and then we're going to have another broken piece of garbage that's going to cost you 2 elite TMs if you don't build one, or God knows whenever, or Arceus knows. Speaking of Arceus, that game comes out soon. And who knows when it's going to come back. But anyways, I hope you guys appreciate the video. Again, don't stress about your freaking IVs. Get your Spheals. Have a wonderful community day. Get the ones you want to build. And then go fight. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe. Next you do Charmanders is that little sub block. You can easily subscribe by putting your mouse over it. And then poof, you can subscribe. Really appreciate my current subscribers. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets. And I will see you guys on the next video.